All right, take it away, Mark.
What's going on? Welcome everybody to the Awaken Alive podcast. With me today, as always, is our producer and founder, Mike DeCrose. I am Mark Smith, and today we have a special guest, Max Shank from Ambition Athletics. Real quick, housekeeping. Website is doing well. We have the member portal. Right now we're running a Labor Day special. You can check out the first month, or you can check it out for 1 week for $4.99. Check that out at IamAwakeandAlive.com, all lowercase. So anyway, without further ado, let me give a brief introduction to our special guest today, Max Shank. Max, say hey.
Hey, what's going on?
All right. So I'm gonna mention a little bit of things that I do know about you so far, and then I will let you take it from there and fill in and embellish and elaborate and go on as far as you want to from there. But I've actually followed Max for a while, and I know that he is a master RKC instructor. He is the founder and owner of Ambition Athletics. He started the Coug Bar, right?
that was a long time ago, yeah.
That was a long time ago, right? I think you've since sold it, yes?
Yeah.
Okay, but that was cool to still start that. I actually remember what it was a post was like, I have, what was it, like 10 gallons of honey and raw milk. What am I going to do? You had like some weird post.
It was actually about 500 gallons of honey.
That's what it was.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, that was a huge learning experience for sure. I mean, I literally knew nothing about the food industry, and they regulate that pretty tight, how you deal with food. That is a fact.
Oh, yeah. If they're not making their money, they don't want you to be making it. And then you are the author of Ultimate Athleticism. That's your latest book, right?
Actually,
you've done a couple other books, right?
Yeah, so I've written a couple. Ultimate Athleticism was December of 2014. So since then, I've written Simple Shoulder Solution, and before that, I actually wrote Master the Kettlebell. And then since, actually just about 2 months ago, I released a whole video series called Kettlebell Essentials. So I've been pretty busy.
Yeah, and we're definitely gonna talk about that project because I think that's pretty sweet. That was last month or the month before that. It's all blurring together for me, man. I'm sure it blurs together for you.
I think it's roughly 2 months ago. I think it was somewhere around July. I remember because, so here's why I remember. I had recently burst my eardrum in a wakeboarding accident and had to get on a plane to Ireland to teach an ultimate athleticism course for the 4th of July weekend. And I launched the product that next week. So it was probably, yeah, somewhere right around like July 8th. I'll tell you what, don't burst an eardrum and then try to get on a plane. The pressure change will kill you.
Yeah.
It's brutal.
I did it with after a head injury and double vision. I got on a plane to go to Austin in 2014, and it was the same thing. As like, it's just messing everything up. So I had this blood behind my eye that was making me see double. All right, so I think that's some of the basics there. We'll let you fill in the gaps and kind of take it from there. As we've already alluded, guys and gals, Max is an extremely busy guy, but always seems to be upbeat about it. Every time you're working on a project, you always seem to be happy about it. So let's talk about, why don't we start and work backwards? Let's talk about Kettlebell Essentials, your latest project, and then we'll kind of go backwards from there, because I definitely want to hear about Ultimate Athleticism more and some other things that I would like to talk about today.
You know, I think the best way to talk about it would be to talk about, if you don't mind, and I hate to do it the other way, but if I can start with Ultimate Athleticism and work my way forward, the thought process might actually make more sense.
Okay, since you're the guest, sure.
If you don't mind, I don't want to run the show.
You twisted my arm, Max. You twisted my arm.
I don't want to run the show. So, Ultimate Athleticism's chief aim is to give people the foundation so they can pursue any athletic endeavor for the rest of their lives. That's always been what it's about, is how can you efficiently structure your training to give people the tools so they can stay active. Because what I realized is the secret to fitness, if you want to call it that, is don't get bored and don't get hurt. The way you don't get bored is you have to give yourself more options. You know, if you're only athletic enough for, I don't know, walking and ballroom dancing, you might not be switched on by either of those things, in which case you're not going to be active at all. But if you have the athletic foundation to try wakeboarding and try tennis and try different martial arts and go cycling and do a triathlon or whatever you want to do that gets you fired up, that is what's going to help you stay, let's call it, healthy and in shape, right? So that was the goal with Ultimate Athleticism, and using a combination of extremely fast learning curve powerlifting type of stuff like the deadlift, using upper body gymnastic movements that are not so highly skill based that they're still practical for the average person, and then combining that with mobility work and some accessory and endurance type of stuff really will yield, for lack of a better term, like the sort of consummate athlete, someone who has the ability to try a lot of different athletic endeavors. So that was my first big project, and that was really just a reflection of how I wanted to structure my own training, because that's kind of how I am, is I wanted to be able to try different martial arts and different sports, and not only be able to like kind of do them, but really enjoy them. So Ultimate Athleticism has like a lot of coordination, especially the course that I teach now. We go a lot into vision and balance training and jumping and power work and things like that. So
Awesome. Great stuff there.
yeah.
It's overlooked at a lot of gyms, that vision and balance work.
Oh man, big time. One thing we do at the gym that's pretty uncommon is we'll actually take little tennis balls and draw letters on them and play catch. And the idea is that if you can call the letter in the air, it's training your hand-eye coordination a little bit better, and also your visual ability to track something in space, which, according to your neural hierarchy, vision is really high on the list of priorities. So if your vision is taken care of, it creates this like sort of positive domino effect that will help the rest of your body function optimally. So you got to really start with some of this higher order neurological stuff.
Yeah, I'm gonna steal that one. I definitely use a lot of tennis ball games at the studio. Oddly enough, my wife is a visual therapist, so she works with vision and the vestibular system hand in hand. But people that's like been completely knocked out of whack, or they have a pre-existing condition. She'll see kids with autism that have sensory input issues. She'll see stroke victims. She'll see people coming back from war that have maybe had some trauma, and the eyes receiving things. So it's a really fascinating field, and I've been able to borrow a lot of that and incorporate it. Says, wait, hold on, if these people are at a deficit of that for something that's happened in their life or something they were born with, but then I look at the average person, it's like, wait, they're not really engaged in that hand-eye coordination or visual perception or tracking or near-far, changing. Kind of everything now exists right in front of us, either on a screen or, looking not that far away across the room. That kind of like look down and then check out a horizon type thing is really big.
Exactly. I mean, there's a spectrum.
You're doing.
There's a huge spectrum between blind and 20/20 vision that has nothing to do with your ability to read a chart 20 feet in front of you. There's so many different visual qualities. I mean, so it's kind of like sad how few people can track an object coming at them from a far distance, and how bad people are at holding their eyes in one position. So I'll do. It doesn't really make sense phonetically, but I jokingly write it out: isometrics, just holding the eyes in different positions. And if you can go right, left, up, down, up, right, top left, lower left, for even just 10 seconds and train those muscles on the outside of the eye, it's really surprising sometimes how much of a huge impact that can have on somebody's movement quality. I mean, I worked with a guy last week, actually, who's been stretching his ass off, really trying to get to be able to touch his toes. And so I had him play catch with a letter ball and do some near far drills with his eyes. And he planted his hands on the floor. I mean, he's been stretching for an hour a day trying to stretch his hamstrings out. But he didn't have a hamstring problem. He had a vision problem. So we did roughly 2 minutes of eye exercises that had a bigger impact in his ability to touch his toes than 3 months of pretty intense stretching. So it just goes to show how big an impact they can have on your movement.
Is that from improving the balance connection between the eyes and being able to balance better than he could reach farther down?
So not exactly. The simple way to look at it is that you have effectively 3 systems that are going to give you information about your body in space. One is your visual system, one is your vestibular system, and one is proprioceptive system, basically. So proprioception is like your body, skin, joints, that kind of thing. Vision, eyes, vestibular system is inner ear. So all of those 3 systems kind of mash that information together to try to get a really good idea of what's going on, like what's happening to you. And the more clear that picture is, the easier you're going to be able to deal with a potential threat, whether that threat is like a tiger over there that you have to see, or whether that threat is simply, tripping on a rock and breaking your melon, which is kind of a huge priority. If you snap your head on a rock, you're dead. Simple as that. So effectively what I'm doing with that eye exercise or with a vestibular exercise or with a balance exercise is you're kind of convincing the nervous system that everything is okay and you should be allowed to touch your toes, because your nervous system can only communicate to you in a couple of ways that something's wrong. Pain, stiffness, and weakness. And really outside of that, it doesn't have any good way of communicating with you. So you can ameliorate some of that pain, stiffness, or weakness by what I like to say is assuaging the concerns of the nervous system and being like, hey, nervous system, cool it. We got this. This is okay. We can see everything now. It's all good. And that's why it's so important to train vision. I've seen this, like I said, it happened just last week on Saturday, actually. So this has happened a lot over the years, and it's just proven time and time again that the eyes are so important. And it's not just about can you see a chart, it's can you actually use your eyes as they were meant to be used? Can you look at something close? Can you look at something far, like you were saying? Can you track something? Are the muscles on the inside of the eye and the muscles on the outside of the eye strong? So oddly enough, this is where athleticism starts, is with the eyes.
Oh, hands down. And it's kind of like you said, paraphrase it would be that you're giving your body permission to do something it should be able to do.
Bingo.
By relaxing the nervous system.
Bingo.
Yeah, and like I said, since my wife got into that field, I've just been borrowing awesome shit from her, like nonstop. I was like, oh, that's fantastic. I'm gonna take that with my clients, and we do some weird fun games, and they seem weird to an outsider, but I know that they work, and it's so why not train your eyes? You hear it all the time in sports. This guy's got great field vision. Well, that's his ability to take information in really fast.
Right.
And then make a split-second decision based on the information.
That's great.
That's exactly where that comes from. So ultimate athleticism then led you towards...
So that actually sparked on Simple Shoulder Solution, because what I realized was the main thing that was keeping people who already exercise from continuing to be able to exercise was shoulder injuries, really. In the total population, the most common injury is probably the low back, but in the athletic population, let's call it, it's the shoulder. So what I wanted to do was, in order to get people to be able to do ultimate athleticism, I had to really put out a lot of quality material on how to address shoulder dysfunction and strengthening the shoulders so it could tolerate high-level athletics.
Awesome. Yeah. So I'm sure you're familiar with Eric Christie.
Oh yeah.
I got to hear him speak, and there's two guys that I've heard talk about shoulders, sort of prior to your release of the shoulder solution, which I now put you in the same category. Whereas, like, I never knew there was this much information to be known on the shoulders.
Oh
One
yeah.
was when I heard Eric Christie talking about the shoulders, um, and it just blew me away. And then, but before that, a few years before that, Ito Portal was talking about the shoulders and the scapula, and I was just like, holy crap! Like, and I think that was like a real big changing thing for me because, I kind of gone through the stiff shoulder thing, and there's certainly far better now. I don't really have any shoulder problems anymore, but it was just kind of this thing, like, as they're saying it and sort of looking back on my journey and my processes, it's like, oh, you know what? Yeah, okay, the shoulders are so freaking important. It's unreal. Like, that's everything about the upper body has to do with the shoulders. And
100%.
so you did that, and then I saw, what was that crazy demonstration you did? You did like some crazy get up to bent press, and it was like, oh, you held it was at 135 or something like that on the barbell, right,
Yeah.
for like five total minutes of doing a flow.
I think that's right. So I was in Sweden teaching an ultimate athleticism course actually, and I was just playing around after the course. So I was doing arm bars and windmills and bent presses, and I think I snatched it to get it up there or something like that for several minutes. And basically it was just a demo of all these different ranges of motion that the shoulder can and should be able to go through.
Under load.
Yeah, under load. I mean, the shoulder is such a complex joint because of that scapular involvement. It's by far the most complex joint we have. There are so many moving parts that affect someone's shoulder mobility. Like, I was working with a guy, and he was actually a hockey player, and they had like a team physical therapist or something like that, and his shoulder was bothering him, so they just gave him a laminated sheet full of shoulder exercises. The problem was no one checked to see if he could actually rotate his spine both ways. Turned out he could rotate about 90 degrees to the right and about 11 degrees to the left.
Okay.
And his left shoulder was the one that was giving him problems. So simple shoulder solution really, and he actually bought Simple Shoulder Solution. That's how he found me, because he actually got a little bit of relief from that, but not of like the shoulder rehab exercises, right? And what people don't understand about the shoulder is it's not just about the ball and socket on the end. That ball and socket on the end is the most mobile joint in the whole body. It's also the most vulnerable joint in the whole body because it has the least amount of joint surface. So what usually happens is someone says, I have tight shoulders. So they stretch the crap out of that smallest joint and most vulnerable, not smallest, but most vulnerable joint and most mobile joint. And of course, that only creates more problems. But what you actually have to do is sort of follow this order of operations that starts with proper breathing to regulate the tension of all those accessory breathing muscles. You have to have adequate core strength, because if you don't have core stability, the ball and sockets don't work. So if I have a core, a trunk from here to here that's loose, my hips aren't going to be mobile and my shoulders aren't going to be mobile, because those will the core will basically borrow muscles from the shoulder and muscles from the hip to try to provide more stability. So you got to get breathing and core strength first. And this is typically done with something as easy as like a side plank or some sort of pale-off press variation. Although there are obviously a lot of good options that will give you that core stability you need to provide the foundation for the shoulder. Then, after that, you got to look at the thoracic spine, which is the mid-back. You got to look at the neck. Then you got to make sure that your scapula can move around and you can have some strength in that shoulder blade. And then finally, after everything else, then you can actually take a look at that ball and socket at the end and see if there's really, truly a dysfunction there. And then you can work on shoulder flexion and internal, external rotation and all that good stuff. but not until you take care of business with that other higher priority stuff first.
That's so cool. Interesting. We talked to Steve Maxwell this morning, and it seems that the whole theme of breath work, it just keeps coming coming up over and over again as we have guys on the show and as we talk about it. And it seems like really that's just the foundation for everything. Is just learning how to breathe right. It is, but it's so funny. It's always I've made this joke before, and I'm sure you probably have as a coach before. It's like I literally get paid to tell people to breathe sometimes. Like you have to remind them to breathe and how to breathe and cue breathing. And it's I don't understand it because it's literally the most involuntary thing. Like if you don't breathe, you die. And yet we have to go back and re-teach people how to breathe as they once did when they were an infant.
Right. Right. And, it's so a lot of people don't know, but I've actually taken private yoga lessons for the last 7 years, once a week, because, if yoga wasn't worth something, it probably wouldn't still be around thousands of years later. And I've borrowed a lot of good things from it, and I don't do everything from it, but I think it's really valuable. And just jokingly, I asked my yoga teacher one day, I was like, how much of your job is just reminding people to breathe? She said, I don't know, probably 50% at least. And it's true because breathing is so fundamentally important. Like you said, if you don't breathe, you die. But as far as down-regulating the parasympathetic nervous system and getting all of the accessory muscles to fully contract and fully relax, it is critically important. What I don't like right now is trainers using breathing as a time filler in the beginning and doing like 20 minutes of corrective breathing exercises for everybody. Because the truth is, a lot of people who are into that, they never really introduce a clear path to reintegration of that new breathing pattern. So you have two things that usually happens with breathing. On the one hand, you have people who will do like 20 minutes of breathing just before they start their foam rolling work, and then 55 minutes later it's like, okay, let's do some push-ups finally. And then on the other hand, you have people who do like a couple minutes of breathing work and they look for, the ribs to move evenly left and right. They look for the, core to expand in 3 dimensions and to get the pelvis to move and all that good stuff. But then when it comes time to reintegrate that to their normal activity, there's not really a clear path. So what I found really effective is to have people hold a mouthful of water. And this is something that has been documented over thousands of years. I know the Spartans did it. I think I heard...
Navy SEALs do it as well, I think, right? The Navy SEALs have at least one day that they have to do this crazy run with the water.
Breathing the whole time. So
hang on just a second, Max.
Breathe through your nose.
Hey, Max, pause for just a second. Let's see if we can get it to catch.
Do we need to...
Yeah, hang on just a second. I'll tell you what, I'm going to take my video off.
I'll take mine off too. Hey Max, we're going to go ahead and kill video for the rest, and I think we are starting to have a little bit of a delay.
Hey Max?
Yeah. Can you go ahead and kill your video, and then we're going to just go without.
I'll kill.
Okay.
I'll kill my video too then.
Perfect.
So Mark, do you see a lot of guys who is the primary issue mouth breathing or upper chest breathing, or combination of both, or where does it start?
I think it's a lot more of it's that kind of panic breath. It's in the upper lungs, and it's the kind of the rib cage versus that diaphragmatic breathing. That's what I typically see, and then I think Max was sort of getting to it before we had some technical difficulties, and hopefully he'll jump back in here in a second. But as he's saying, with like the Spartans and these great cultures that have been physically superior, they've kind of been onto this nasal breathing. They've always had it ingrained, and um, what I was saying was, you go for a run with the water in your mouth and you spit the water out, but that trains you at the end of the run, and that trains you to breathe in through the nose and down into the diaphragm, and is sort of this, it's not putting you in a state of alert or distress. Max, are you back with us now? Let's see. Oh, there you Max.
Hello?
Can you hear
I'm
us?
back.
What's up? Cool, man. So, I was just kind of picking up where you left off, but certainly watch your input since we were talking about. I was just simply saying that what I see is a lot of this sort of upper chest panic breathing, and the trick with the water in the mouth kind of trains people to slow down, breathe through the nose, fill the diaphragm, and sort of calm that nervous system. If you want to pick up on your stream of thought there. Sorry about the technical difficulty. I don't.
Yeah, no, that's totally fine. I mean, as far as breathing is concerned, a lot of people now are so enamored with this really high-intensity training all the time. So they are using their neck and shoulders a lot to facilitate the breathing. And especially with regard to simple shoulder solution, that's where it started, is the fact that people were using their neck and shoulders as the dominant muscles for breathing. But just breathing into the belly isn't necessarily a good idea either, because you're supposed to have an even expansion all the way through. Proper breathing is actually supposed to improve your hip mobility, your shoulder mobility, and massage your internal organs if you do it properly. So it's supposed to just start from the bottom and then fill up like a cup. And if you can get people to relax their breathing, that is also the best way to approach any kind of endurance training.
Yeah, I remember I had a yoga instructor. I used to do the one-on-one yoga thing as well, and we did this thing where we laid on our back, and one hand was on the belly and one was on the chest, and you made waves. You filled your belly and then your chest.
Bingo.
And I thought that was cool. And a little trick for anybody that ever has trouble sleeping: you do that for like a couple minutes while you're laying in bed, and you're out. I mean, it's really like it clears the mind and relaxes. And I've used that trick if I've ever got not being able to fall asleep.
Oh, big time. And they'll actually do a 1-to-2 inhale to exhale ratio specifically to get the nervous system to calm down. And they'll especially use that a lot in any pain clinics.
Mm-hmm.
Anywhere they're dealing with pain, they'll typically do like a 4-8 count. In for 4 count, out for an 8 count.
Max,
Yeah.
so I borrowed this from you, and I want to give you credit. I actually always have given you credit for this one in my own newsletters to my own people.
Thanks,
But I will say this. I want it to be on the podcast while I'm talking to you. The big glass of water and 5 minutes of morning mobility. It might be the most life-changing thing I've ever been able to do and get other people to do. I thought it's so freaking simple, but like, I don't know, did you just come up with this? Have you been doing it for a while? You want to tell people why it works? I mean, it's so simple, but geez, I mean, it really does start the day right.
I gotta tell you, it makes me so happy to hear you say that.
Thank you, sir.
That puts the biggest smile on my face. So, 5-minute flow, and the reason I started with Ultimate Athleticism was 5-minute flow was a way to get people in the door on the path. And 5-minute flow is actually a lot more about habit formation and behavioral psychology than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
It requires no equipment. It has a huge bang for your buck. There are no barriers to entry. You don't have to buy anything for it. You can't really do it wrong. And I can't tell you the massive amount of positive feedback I've gotten from 5-minute flow. And like you said, it is so simple. All you do is you wake up. That's your trigger for the new habit. You move around for 5 minutes, wiggle your joints in circles. I don't care what you do. Then you reward yourself. It's important that habits have a reward with a big glass of water. And I figured that for the least amount of time, ROI through the roof. And what they find is that when you develop any type of exercise habit, and of course 5-minute flow is an exercise habit because you're moving around, you're more likely to make better choices throughout the day. But not only that, the mobility centric nature of the 5-minute flow is going to make every step you take rehab rather than maybe reinforcing bad patterns. So the fact that you're doing it early in the morning, the fact that you're doing it first thing, number one, it shows that you're really prioritizing your orthopedic health and really your general health. And like I said, number two is that it just sets off the tone of the day right, and it makes you more likely to adopt these other healthy exercise habits. So it's really the full package for almost no work.
Yep, my dad's 61, and he adopted it as soon as I sent out a newsletter, which was sometime last year. I sort of first called the challenge, and he's been diligent with it since. And I mean, he just screams the benefits of it. Wake up, and then he just tackles the day like a warrior the rest of the day. So he's a big fan as well.
Oh man, that is so great.
And I think it's cool, to see how it's beneficial at all ages, and keeping you young, and for me, banging off the rust of a night's sleep or whatever. I usually do it out on the porch with my boys. They do it with me too sometimes. It's just kind of goofy because they're 3 and
that's
15.
great.
They just try to mimic what Dad's doing. So anyway, I wanted to, while I had you in, live in the flesh, just commend you for that. What a brilliant idea. It seems though like everything you've done has sort of been like one big picture master plan. Like, it's I mean, not that you're an evil dude, but like maybe like a master evil villain or something. Like just like the thought and the detail into this. It's like 5-minute flow begat ultimate athleticism, begat shoulder solution, begat kettlebell essentials.
I've always thought of myself as an evil supervillain.
But yeah, it's this really awesome big picture puzzle that you got going on here.
Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I guess the way to respond to that would be basically to say that it's everything I do is basically born out of necessity, I feel, because my goal is really to just give people the freedom to move. And I want that to be able to start at level 0. It's really a slant. You can take your athleticism as far as you want to go. Like, if you don't get super fired up to deadlift 400 pounds, I see no reason why you should pursue it. If you don't get super fired up to, squat 900 pounds, I don't really see a purpose. If you don't like using kettlebells, don't use them. But I just want to have an entry point for people to improve their lives, improve their fitness, improve their health, improve their athleticism, regardless of what stage they are in that journey. So really, I wanted to have it in steps, and ultimate athleticism is kind of like the culmination of when you've developed all these other skills, and 5-minute flow is like the starting point. And that's, really, I think, as far as scheduling your day out is concerned, mobility and flexibility and just the health of your joints really needs to be a priority for everybody. You got to take care of your body.
I usually do a little bit of squat work right before bed also, just sort of get down that squat pattern one last time. Sort of release the hips a little bit. And I found that to help a lot too. Just sort of feels good.
Oh man, absolutely. And that's another good way to improve your sleep too, is static stretching and some movement work right before bed at a low intensity is a really good way to improve your sleep.
That
Yeah,
and some good
I've been doing that
breathing.
for a long time. It's a great way to decompress, get the mind off work and kids, and I don't know if you want to call it meditation, but you sort of focused on whatever movement you're doing, and you sort of forget whatever might keep you up.
Well, you kind of just hit the nail on the head there, really. In in today's world, which seems like such a silly thing to say, because I'm sure people have said that for thousands of years. Well, in the world today, things are like this. But in the world today, we're moving at a faster and faster pace where you can instantly communicate with anybody anywhere in the world. So as a result of that, it's as if we have less and less time to do things like meditate. And meditation doesn't have to be, sitting on the floor and chanting. It can be movement related, it can be music related, and just on a personal level, I really pay extra special attention to reserving some time for myself, some alone time. We're plugged in so much. I'll actually, one of the best things I ever did was I put my phone in the office. I would plug it in at around 8 o'clock, and that's the end of the phone. And some days it's earlier, but I just unplug, and I'll still get work done, but just having some alone time to either do something like movement or music or reading or whatever, I think that's something that across the board people are really lacking, and they would have a lot more clarity, I think, if they just took some time to do whatever is meditation for them.
Dude, when I get the rare treat to have a whiskey and a cigar on the back porch under the stars, that's where it all kind of comes together for me. Just sitting there quietly.
There you go. Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, I think that is it's hard, and it's hard to talk about being unplugged in today's world. Like, it really is. I'm one of those people that is on my phone a lot, but I hate the fact that I am. Does that make sense? Like,
You are speaking my language.
It's like I'm communicating with people. It's like I almost have to out of necessity because of where we've arrived, and running a couple businesses, and that's how I communicate. That's how you get a hold of anybody. And
the key is just to draw a line, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. Like set a standard or something like that. And, one of my favorite things is like when I go out of town, for the weekend. But I just go completely off the grid.
Yeah.
Or like one day a week, like Sunday is family day. I don't really mess with my phone on family day. It's about the wife and kids, and just everything can wait till the work week starts again.
We're probably going to make ourselves sound old, but do you guys remember having landline phones when we were kids? And I remember my dad would berate anyone who called the house after like 7:30. It was just off limits. It was rude. You did not.
We had after 9. It was in my house.
After dark.
And I mean, my mom would lay into somebody on the phone. How dare you call this house? We're sleeping.
Family time.
You call this house again, I'll have the cops track your number and report you. I mean, like, seriously, like, go off. And of course, when I was in middle school and trying to chat up a lady, and then like the call would drop and they'd be stupid enough to call back. I'm like, God, shit. Phone ring, and it's right next to my parents' bed. Busted.
Well, it's interesting because the more active people are on social media, the more time they spend there, it's more like we're performers in our own lives. That's what social media is you're performing for whatever group of people you're there on. And you can use this in a positive way, or you can let this be your complete downfall. Like, I personally see a huge benefit in being able to connect with potentially thousands or tens of thousands or 100,000s of people across the world who happen to be interested in improving themselves physically.
Yeah, and you get to put good out.
But if you get caught taking, 1,800 pictures of yourself and posting them online every day, you're probably not using it in that healthy of a way.
Yeah, well, and also, I mean, I think you're constantly looking for affirmation. It's like, did they like that one? Did they like that post? Did they like that?
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Well, and then you get emotionally tied up into it, Mark. Like we were, I'm sure Max, you get the same thing. You put out anything fitness related, and you just reach a wall of haters sometimes, and it's hard not to take it personally or get baited into discussions with people that you don't know or really have any business communicating with.
Yeah, that's the truth. And the internet is so full of free advice on what you should do. And this advice usually comes with absolutely no frame of reference for the subjects that are being discussed. Using it's funny though, I use it as a metric too to try to guide me into trying to learn where the direction of the world is going. And what's a little bit disheartening as far as that whole thing is concerned is let's say the reach of a picture versus the reach of an article. Unfortunately, the picture usually has about a 10x reach of the article, unless the article is really, really something that almost basically goes viral. And it's weird because as a society, at least in the United States, it seems like we're moving more close to just consuming smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller bites of information. Like if I spend an hour writing an article and putting a video together, and I get, let's say, 5,000 hits or something like that, like that's pretty good, but that's nothing like the picture of the hot chick with white writing over it that gets shared 11 million times. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you're saying you should be a hot chick.
Yeah, everybody should run their business like Brett Contreras and have nothing but pictures of chicks, is what you're saying.
He's certainly figured out what people want to click on, right?
The guy,
He's
got a finger on the pulse of society.
He's got a finger on something.
He's a genius.
Yep.
No, and dude, that is so spot on. Like and even the attention span. Like it's not even people are taking the smaller bites of information. It's even like a video that's 3 minutes long, 30 seconds into it, somebody's clicking. Like they can't even wait out a 3-minute video.
Oh, well, you know what? No one's immune from it either. I mean, I went through the same thing myself. I got on Facebook and I try to just filter it out and look at just fitness stuff. So I try to use it effectively, but there was like a month-long period where I would get totally sucked in because it's just little bits, teasers of information. You're like, oh, I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in that, and then you just get caught scrolling, right?
Right.
And I just want to say that for anyone listening, no one's immune to that shit.
No, not at all.
You just have to really actively try to stamp that out and say, what is my real goal here? Because everyone's got goals. Everything's got things they want to accomplish, even if it's just to relax. The last thing you probably want to do is spend 30 minutes scrolling through cat videos.
Unless you're a cat person, and I know some cat people. Holy crap.
And there's nothing wrong with cats. I mean, I love cats, but it's not a good use of your time probably, because of course we all have something that we could probably complain about, but really that's time should be spent trying to solve the problem of whatever problem we're having.
Sure. We realized we had an issue with the phones when our son's preschool teacher asked him what mommy likes to do, and he said mommy likes to stare at her phone.
Ooh.
Oh.
So we were like, maybe we should start putting these away and even just engaging more with kids, or just in general we need to just put the Facebook and turn it off, because the kids notice, and they're 5 and 3 and they're already glued to an iPhone for games pretty much
Yeah.
nonstop.
It's really sad. I mean, there's really a lot out there. Like I was fortunate enough. I actually taught a course in Italy, and I got to go see some pretty amazing things. But what was really sad even then was how many people were looking at everything through a camera lens, and how many people were looking at their phones. And it was just, no one, I felt, or very few people, I should say, very few people actually appreciated the thing for what it was in person, and were much more concerned on either taking a picture or taking a video or snapping a selfie that they would never look at again.
Yeah.
Because nobody really looks at those pictures that they take. People take thousands of pictures on these vacations. I'll tell you guys, I take almost no pictures on any trip that I take, and it drives my marketing girl up the freaking wall because she's like, I have no content from that last trip you went on. And I understand as a business owner it's important, but I really, really try to be in the moment for things like that and just enjoy it, because if you're always taking pictures of everything you do, it actually develops a little bit of a scarcity mindset. Like, ooh, this kind of thing might never happen again. Right?
Yeah, it's an interesting point.
Yeah, actually, I was blessed to take a trip to Europe this summer as a rising 10th grader. It was through the school. It sort of started in 8th grade. And so as you're talking, all these, you said you're in Italy, and all of a sudden these memories came back from my trip to Italy. Vivid memories. And I was like, I was thinking as you're saying, I was like, you know what? I would probably want to take pictures now if I was there, because it's so freaking easy to take one. Now, I was in Ireland not long ago, and I actually didn't take that many pictures. One, my phone was busted, so that was kind of actually helpful. But I did take a few pictures. But I was thinking, when I did that trip in Europe, actually, it was back in the disposable camera days. You guys remember those little wind-up things?
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I had 3 of those or something. So I literally have 70 some pictures from this trip, and that's it. But I was gone for 17 days, and you think today you probably would have taken, like you said, thousands of pictures. Most of them would have been total shit anyway. But it's a couple pictures of me of these friends of mine from high school, and in front of a monument or something like that, and then the rest of it is like I remember walking into the Coliseum. And I still remember the feeling of having my breath absolutely taken away at the sides of the Coliseum. I remember walking up, and when I first got to the second level, that sort of base platform of the Eiffel Tower before you get to the top, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm already so high up, and I still have so far to go to the top. And and I watched a couple get engaged at the top of the Eiffel Tower. I'm in 10th grade. It's I'm not thinking about getting married, but I know it's a special moment. I was there for it because I wasn't taking a selfie from the top. So I have these memories and in artwork. I even remember there's this one painting. I can't remember the name of it. If I ever were to come across a print of it, I would be able I would buy it on the spot, because there was this one painting in the Louvre that was my favorite, and I can't remember the name of it, but I can tell you exactly what it looks like. So you're right. Like, if you get lost in your phone, or you just get lost in virtual reality and you miss reality.
There you go. That's it.
So this is also, I thought, fascinating about you. You once said that you think you might have been the only dude that was competing in jiu-jitsu and Highland Games, right?
Well, not the only dude. I think there are like 1 or 2 more, but I'm probably the only guy who went to the World Championships for both 1 week apart from each other.
That's what you said. I thought that was awesome, because my background is BJJ, and then I got into Highland Games recently, so I just thought that was really cool. But
that's awesome.
That's pretty awesome.
How do you like Highland Games?
Well, I like it a lot. I got into it because I was looking for something kind of competitive, and I got this lovely Scotch-Irish background, as evidenced by this red beard that you saw earlier. I'm actually wearing a Highland Games shirt right now, but I like it. I'm not the biggest guy, but it's a fun challenge, and I think it's cool to learn the technique to throw a heavy object. It's difficult, but I say this every time I talk about the Highland Games. The camaraderie is unlike anything I have ever done. I mean, it is just a wonderful environment and atmosphere.
I agree 100%. I'm sure some of that has to do with the fact that you can drink alcohol and throw and compete at the same time. And I'm sure also it has to do with the fact that most of the time you're standing around or you're sitting around hanging out with everybody.
Well, and there's this willingness to instruct. I mean, as a total new person, you got these.
Oh, that's so true.
You got these people like, hey, I mean, they nothing in it for them, and they pull me aside after one throw of 3 attempts. Hey, if you just put your foot here a little bit, or just hang on to it a little bit longer, let the weight sort of glide a little bit.
Because we can all remember how freaking hard it was to throw the weight for distance the first time.
Yeah, or weight over the bar. I hate that one. But yeah, and then this simple stuff, and there's this old timer. He completes in the Masters. He's actually a world champion of the Masters. This guy that was out there, and just funny, man. He used to do pro wrestling, so he had like that charisma and just entertaining and like really, really playful junk talk to like the judges because he knew them for like 30 years.
Oh, that's great.
And I mean, the guy like wealth of knowledge, and so I'm actually looking to kind of gear back up in November and get ready for a pretty good spring season.
Excellent.
Yeah, man, it's an interesting thing, and I think so. You're out in that one in California. I think is the largest in the world, right? What's the big one out there?
It might be Pleasanton.
Yeah, I think so. I think that by the numbers is now the largest in the world.
Yeah,
the one here in or up in Grandfather Mountain is the 3rd largest. That's here in North Carolina.
Oh, nice.
With the actual ones in Scotland, and Edinburgh being the 2nd largest. But it's a population game. I mean.
Yeah, exactly.
Not that many people in Scotland compared to California.
That's the truth.
But yeah, that's cool. And then also I've got into I've always sort of been into the stone lifting, and recently I've sort of got into reading and learning about the history of Scottish stone lifting. I didn't even know it was a thing. I just thought it was cool to pick up heavy rocks. I didn't know there was like this rich tradition of it, and like the stones have names, and different guys have achieved these stones. There's a documentary coming out called The Wind Beneath My Stone. I don't know when it's releasing, but it's pretty cool.
You could make one about kilts, The Wind Beneath My Stones.
Exactly. Now you're talking. Well, cool, man. Do you have any questions for us or anything you'd like to ask us?
Oh, man, this was a blast, you guys.
Yeah, man. Listen, we are gonna wrap this up here. We'd love to have you on the show maybe in the spring again, because there's plenty to talk about, and you're always doing something cool. Yeah, and also, if you will go ahead and send us over the links to anything you got going on right now, man. We wanna get that out there for you.
Cool, thanks, man. I'll do that.
Yeah, and do you want to go ahead and feel free to let people know where they can get a hold of you, follow you, anything you want them to check out?
Yeah, absolutely. Like right now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, all right. Easiest way to find me is via maxshank.com. That'll have all my products up there. I also have some upcoming courses. I'm actually teaching a 5-minute flow course a couple weeks from, actually a week from this Saturday. And I got a lot of other events all over the world, basically. And really, Instagram, Twitter, or Max Shank, and Facebook, Max Shank. It's all the same stuff. There aren't a lot of Max Shanks out there. So just maxshank.com, and if you Google me, I'm there.
Is Shank German?
It is German. Like Maximilian Shank.
Oh, cool, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I'll be going back to Germany in November.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's about it. Thanks so much for coming on our show, dude. I know you're super busy, man, and yeah, totally awesome to chat and hang out with you.
Absolutely. I look forward to doing it again soon.
If I ever get out there to San Diego, I'll be sure to stop by.
Oh, you have to. It's a blast. The weather's not too bad either.
No, I've been there once, and it was absolutely ridiculous. I was like, now I get it. I get why everybody's there.
Now I get it.
All right, man. Well, have a good one.
All right, man. Thank you very much. You guys have a good night.
You too. Thanks, Max.
Cheers.
All right, bye.